Adventurous kids, explore with education and learning what a wild life is in the Everglades. I want to explore the Museum of Discovering Science. What plants do butterflies like? I want to know about Key West Adventurous Kids, learning and fun. Adventurous Kids!
Today I'm going to tell you about J.R.R. Tolkien. Hi everyone! Today we're going to learn about one of the most famous fantasy authors of all time, J.R.R. Tolkien. If you ever heard of The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, then you already know a little bit about him. But did you know that Tolkien didn't just write stories? He created entire worlds, complete with their own languages, maps, creatures, and histories. Let's start with his name. J.R.R. stands for John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. He was born on January 3, 1892 in South Africa, but he moved to England when he was a young boy. As a kid, Tolkien loved languages and made up his own secret codes and alphabets for fun. Later in life, he became a professor at Oxford University, where he taught English and specialized in old languages like Old English and Norse. That love for languages became a big part of his stories. Tolkien's most famous works are The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings trilogy. He actually wrote The Hobbit first in 1937. The idea started when he was grading papers and suddenly scribbled the words, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." That sentence sparked an entire adventure. The Hobbit tells the story of Bilbo Baggins, a peaceful creature who goes on a dangerous journey with dwarves, fights trolls, and even meets a dragon named Smaug. But Tolkien didn't stop there. Years later, he wrote The Lord of the Rings, which is much longer and more complex. It follows Frodo Baggins, Bilbo's cousin, as he tries to destroy a powerful magical ring before it falls into the hands of the Dark Lord Sauron. The trilogy is made up of 3 books: The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. These books are full of amazing characters like Gandalf the Wizard, Aragorn the Ranger, and Legolas the Elf. One of the coolest things about Tolkien's world is that he created entire languages just for his characters. For example, Elvish isn't just made up words. It has real grammar rules and even poetry. He also drew detailed maps of Mother Earth so readers could follow the characters' journeys. Did you know that Tolkien spent over 12 years writing The Lord of the Rings? He was so dedicated to getting every detail just right. In fact, he wrote thousands of pages of background stories, histories, and family trees to make his world feel real. A lot of that extra material was collected and published later in a book called The Silmarillion, which tells the ancient history of Middle-earth. But here's something many people don't know. Tolkien wrote many more stories than just those 2. He actually spent his whole life building the history, languages, and legends of his imaginary world, which is called Middle-earth. One of the most important books he worked on was called The Silmarillion. This book tells the ancient myths and history of Middle-earth, kind of like a Bible or mythology book for his fantasy world. It explains how the world was created, who the first elves and men were, and introduces powerful beings like Morgoth and even darker villains and so on. Tolkien also wrote Unfinished Tales, which is a collection of stories and ideas he never finished. The Children of Húrin, a tragic tale of a cursed family during the early days of Middle-earth. Beren Luthien, a romantic adventure about a mortal man and an elf maiden who goes on a dangerous quest. The Fall of Gondolin, which tells of a secret city that betrayed and destroyed during a great war. These books were published after Tolkien died in 1973, and they were edited by his son Christopher Tolkien, who spent years organizing his father's notes and turning them into full books. Thanks to him, we have access to even more of Tolkien's magical world. Together, including his major works, posthumous books, and collections, Tolkien wrote or contributed to over 30 books. And that doesn't even include all his poems, essays, and letters. He even wrote a fun little story called Letters from Father Christmas, where he pretended to be Santa Claus and sent magical letters to his children each year, complete with hand drawn pictures. So, to sum it all up, Tolkien was more than just a writer. He was a world builder, a language inventor, a poet, and a professor. His imagination gave us stories that feel real, deep, and timeless. People all over the world still read his books, watch the movies, and even speak his made up languages like Elvish and Dwarfish. Thanks to Tolkien, fantasy stories became more popular than ever. Authors like J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter, and Christopher Polony Aragon have said that Tolkien inspired them, and his stories are still being enjoyed today through books, movies, and even video games. The Lord of the Rings movies, directed by Peter Jackson, won multiple Academy Awards and brought Tolkien's world to life on the big screen. Tolkien married Edith Mary Bratt on March 22, 1916. They had 4 children: John, Michael, Christopher, and Priscilla. Tolkien's wife, Edith, passed away in 1971. Tolkien passed away on September 2nd, 1973, at the age of 81, but his legacy lives on. Fans around the world still celebrate his work, and many even learn Elvish to dress up as their favorite characters at conventions. Tolkien and his characters are honored in many ways around the world. Streets, mountains, companies, and even types of animals and plants are named after them. For example, on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, small hills are named after characters from Middle-earth. Mountains are named after mountains in Middle-earth. There are also asteroids named after Bilbo Baggins and Tolkien himself. 3 mountains in Canada are named after Tolkien's characters: Mount Shadowfax, Mount Gandalf, and Mount Emergowan. In the Netherlands, a whole neighborhood has streets named after Tolkien and his characters. In California, USA, some housing areas also have streets named after places in Middle-earth like Rivendell Lane. Since 2003, the Tolkien Society has organized Tolkien Reading Day. This event happens on March 25 and goes around the world celebrating his works. So next time you hear the word Hobbit or see a picture of a magic ring, you'll know where it all came from. Tolkien wasn't just a writer, he was a world builder, a language inventor, and a storyteller whose imagination continues to inspire people all over the world. Thanks for listening, and remember, as Tolkien once wrote, not all those who wander are lost. Thanks for watching this Adventurous Kids episode.
What did you learn today?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
What was the most interesting fact?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!